Good morning, everybody. It's me, Robert Phoenix, and I am back again for another edition of Astro Weather. I'm joined by the Astro Cat himself as he makes bread on the crown. He's claiming his turf. Meanwhile, um, his young little protege is scooting around on the floor beneath us. Who knows? Maybe she'll jump in on Astro Weather one of these days. She's getting friendlier. Last night she jumped up on the couch for a session of pets. That was a first, really. So we're integrating the new mythos into what we're doing here. Anyway, good morning. If it is morning for you, I hope you're having a really stellar morning with all this Aries energy in the air. You're either on fire or I think there's a lot of fight or flight in the air today, and just in general. This whole thing started, I guess, on Monday, where we had the shooting in Nashville, which I'll talk a little bit about again on the other show today, and just to try to address it in terms of astrological context. Of course, there's all this Aries in the air, and from an astrological perspective, of course, we're going to be dealing with things like guns and firearms during a heavy alignment like this, where we have the Sun, Chiron, and Jupiter. The Sun-Jupiter conjunction in 10 days is going to be quite a thing, right? A big deal. And we haven't had a Sun-Jupiter conjunction in Aries since 2011. So probably on Sunday night, I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at that 2011 period and just see what was going on during that time, and how potentially explosive the energies are. So, I try to personalize these energies so that they make sense to you and you can derive something out of it. But we also have the collective potential, and we're starting to see a lot of the blowback of what happened in Nashville. And it doesn't really matter now if a person fits a profile. The profile doesn't matter. In fact, if anything, the obfuscation of the profile, the identity, the gender clouds the issue in a way where it creates another layer of film over the surface of whatever the event is, right? So ultimately, they'll use this event, they'll use and it'll hit people from a number of different angles. It'll hit people from the so-called trans or left or progressive or whatever label people have to align with a certain type of agreement or a certain type of mission, right? Those people we're going to use a very Aries word, triggered, right? Triggered over the fact that the right pronouns weren't being used. And it falls into this idea that a certain group is being hunted down and persecuted, like a most dangerous game scenario, but on a social level. And then on the other side, you have the far right or the conservatives or people that are into the Second Amendment, and they're triggered as well. And they're being triggered over the fact that this is somebody who theoretically identifies as whatever they identify as. More confusion, more chaos. And this thing has just begun, really, just in terms of its social impact. Because ultimately, with Chiron and Aries, and Chiron being at 20 degrees in the U.S. chart, the United States will will experience its Chiron return starting this year and then moving into next year. And I've said this for a long time, that during this Chiron return, they will do everything in their power to curb, curtail, end the Second Amendment or certain, weapons that are associated with the Second Amendment. Of course, those weapons were on full display yesterday, or Monday rather, during the shooting. So, I mean, these are the collective energies. And with Jupiter, everything gets expanded, and it's a much bigger issue in terms of how this is being perceived. And everybody is rolling up their sleeves. This is one of those days where I don't think there's a lot of, how do I say this? I don't think there's a lot of redemption. And I'm not saying you should just go back to bed. I wouldn't do that, but you're going to have to fight through some stuff today. The moon in Cancer is very, very subjective, very touchy, very moody, very sensitive. And all of these, the army of Aries, the alignment of Aries, the square is like, fuck your feelings. There's a lot of fuck your feelings in the air today. And I wouldn't be surprised if people just go off today even more. Like I think the blowback from this event, whatever this event was, and there are signs that, of course, it looks very, very dubious on a lot of levels. What's interesting is this idea that there are two pairs of sneakers, right? I don't know if you've seen the video. One pair of sneakers is, I guess, Nikes, and the other pair of sneakers are Pumas. The other pair of sneakers are Vans, and they don't match up. And it's like, oh, here we go. Instead of having the smoking gun or the magic bullet, we have the switching of the souls, right? So there's just a ton of intensity and heat and confusion and a high degree of subjectivity. And a lot of people are rolling up their sleeves, and this is the energy of pugilism, right? Boxing, like entering the octagon. And if you're going to do it, make sure you get your licks in. I think this is one of those days where it's just going to be really, really difficult to moderate how you feel. It's going to be difficult. So, what do you, when in Rome, using an Aries kind of metaphor, what are you going to do? Do as the Romans. Yesterday I said, pick your battles. And some of that is still in the air, but there's almost this feeling or sense that you can't help it, that the energies are just drawing you in, so that you're going to have to commit one way or the other. And if you're going to be drawn in, if you're going to have this sense of being the bull in the ring, do it so that you defend something, right? This is how both Mars and Cancer and the moon and Cancer operate. It's Cancer's defensive. So if you're going to connect in with this intense, hardcore, martial, aggressive Aries energy, you may as well use it to defend something, whether it's your home or somebody less fortunate, or however it lines up, right? This is one of those days where if you can align your energy in that direction, woe be unto the ones who are offensive and violating your codes or your standards or your ethics. I think it's a really challenging day to remain cool. And the interesting thing here is the conjunction with the moon and Pallas, because it adds a psychic component to this day where you understand intuitively, people understand intuitively, like what's going on. They understand intuitively, how these cycles and patterns are operating in our lives. And you could even get very strong hits on where things are going, and that may feed into these squares, which again, are you going to defend your hunches? Are you going to defend your instincts? This is not a day where we sit around and sing kumbaya and we try to find a win-win. The energy is just not there. We have a nice little sextile with Venus and the moon. Is that gonna carry the day? Is that gonna offset the potential for all of this explosive, dynamic, subjective feeling energy? When the moon moves into Leo, when's that going to be? Wednesday. So today's Wednesday, Thursday. When the moon moves into Leo tomorrow, late tomorrow, it's going to start to trine all of these Aries planets, and the energy is going to be better in terms of the flow. But when you get into the moon in Leo, you get into things like indignation, and there's this kind of emotional entitlement. And so we go from this shift of feeling like we're being drawn in to this intensely subjective conflict to this other energy on the other side, which borderline holier than thou. Like the next 48 hours is going to be a very intense period of time. And when it's yeah, I'm kind of at a loss for words, really, which is not often. I usually have something to say, but it just feels like we're over the next 48-hour period, both individually and collectively, like we're going to war. We're going to war. And then with the moon in Leo, there's this justification. And yeah, the energy is flowing all in the right direction. Like our emotions are aligned with our actions. But the moon in Leo, it's like there's an ego identification. There's and especially as it relates to children, we're in this wave, right? We're in this wave of this deeply intense and maternal concern for how we're feeling, for our families, for our homes, for our traditions, and they're being assaulted. And then there's the intense trigger that goes along with that. And people are saying, well, fuck this, I've had enough, right? I've had enough. And just wait till the moon moves into Leo, because you're dealing with kids. That's another component around all this. You're dealing with kids, and you're dealing with the idea that kids should be sacred, sacrosanct, that they shouldn't be violated on any level, whether it's a biological level, whether it's a level that's related to the tip of a bullet or the end of a knife. I'm telling you, the energies over the next 48 hours today, they're explosive. People's emotional bodies are filled to the brim with frustration. They have a sense as to what's going on. Their world is crumbling, right? The touch points of the world that we once knew are crumbling, and there's hell to pay. And on the other side, you have this marginalized group, this very small percentile, and they're feeling defensive. Now, all of a sudden, if you're in the quote unquote trans community and you're watching the reverberations of what happened in Nashville, how are you feeling about that? How are you feeling? Are you feeling safe? Probably not. So what's going to happen after that? Well, that'll trigger a whole other series of behaviors. Today, it's just very touchy, very, very touchy. And then as we move into tomorrow night, and then in the following day with the moon in Leo, it's like, let's go to Jerusalem and let's slay the infidels. That's the energy. So these are very, very explosive aspects that we're dealing with here. You know, how can it serve you on a personal level? Well, the moon and the moon in Cancer, stop start, timid. Sometimes with a square with Aries, you can, you know, overcome your emotions in some ways. You could override your fears with the squares. So if you're feeling timid, if you're feeling like, oh, I just can't get anything done, and all I want to do is just, you know, crawl into a ball and keep the covers over my head today, the squares will not let you do that. It'll push you past this desire or need. We'll call it not even a desire, we'll call it a need to just pull back into your shell. You can't stay in your shell today. So if you want to tackle some inertia and some entropy, today is one of those. There's not, you know, we have some Earth, we have the True Node, we have Juno, we have Venus, we have Uranus, sextiling into the moon. You know, if you have the ability to connect with people that you share similar values with, that you can talk about things and peel back the layers of the onion with without being shouted down or being called hateful, then I think that's a reasonable response to the sextile here. You can kind of tap into it. There's very little objectivity. You know, with the vertex, which is really just based on me being here at this time. Then we have Pluto in Aquarius, and that's it. Like there's no objectivity here. And even though Pluto is only going to be in Aquarius for a brief time, there's going to be some major aspects to it. Like when Mercury goes into Taurus and we get into that real hard square, it's in a square now, right? With Mercury in Aries, you know, and again, you know, as we move through those final degrees and it gets closer to that square, there are going to be things that are said that can't be unsaid. Just remember that. There are going to be things over the next 10 days, 11 days, 12 days until Mercury transits out of that orb at around 6-7 Taurus. That's 2 weeks. This is a period where there are going to be things that are going to be said that can't be unsaid. You also have to pay attention to what some of the laws are right now or that are on the books. There's this whole thing with TikTok, and they want to somehow hammer TikTok, but they want to take away VPNs. They want to take away anonymity. And it sounds like it's a good thing on the surface, and ultimately it's not. I don't have a solution for TikTok because I think TikTok is really dangerous, really, really dangerous on many levels. But the solution to it is not great. And especially if this thing is voted on and we have Mercury in Taurus squaring Pluto in Aquarius, that won't be able to be undone. Like the days of having a mostly censor-free internet will be over. It'll be over, and TikTok will be the fire starter for it all. So this period of time we're in is very intense. There's a lot going on, and there's a lot of anger and frustration and very intense energy that doesn't really have a place to go. Doesn't have a place to go. And of course, they want to, you know, start to change gun laws again. There's Mars in Cancer, then the inconjunct with Pluto. So, you know, we can't skip out and beam out 2 or 3 months. We're going to have to deal with this, right? We're going to have to deal with the conflict. We're going to have to deal with the frustration, whether it's within ourselves or with other people. We're going to have to deal with it. And, you know, here we go. Here we go. We're moving into the fray, and let the chips fall where they may. And if you're gonna get into conflict, if you're going to quote unquote be offensive, then it should be related to something that you feel deeply connected to and you want to defend. So the whole idea of values plays a huge, huge role today. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be hot. It's going to be hot. People are going to be pissed off, and and this is all being created. It's all being orchestrated. But the astrology plays it out. The astrology shows it peels back the curtain. It pulls back the curtain on these collective energies. We can see them being played out right now. All right. Very interesting star of the day today. And I had some good candidates today. And it came down to two. I'll tell you who I was going to pick. Well, they were on the list. And that was Christopher Lambert. Today is Christopher Lambert's birthday. And some of you might know of Christopher Lambert as the Highlander. And being an Aries, come on now. That's a perfect role for Christopher Lambert. Although I think he was on, he might have been part of Epstein Island. I don't know. For some reason, it sounds familiar. But today is one of the most mythological stars of the day that I've run across. Today's star of the day is Lucy Lawless. Wait till we unpack Lucy Lawless. Can I just be a little frank here? Look at all this fucking Aries in her chart. Look at all this fucking Aries. Moon, Sun, Eris, Saturn. True note. Finally, with Mars, she moves out of Aries and into Taurus, zero Taurus. But look what we have here. We got a trine with Jupiter. So her Jupiter is just going to make her Mars bigger, the ruling planet of her chart, Aries rising. Lucy Lawless is a triple Aries. And of course, she's going to be Xena, the warrior, right? This is, I mean, how could this person not be? Interesting story. She was not originally cast to be the lead in this role. There was another woman who was English, and she was supposed to be Xena. And apparently she got sick, and then there were some passport issues, and they were going to shoot this in New Zealand. That's where they shot Xena. And Lucy Lawless happens to be what? From New Zealand. So it was like, okay, thank you, British actress. We have your replacement. They're able to travel because they're a citizen of New Zealand, and they're actually healthy. And it's destined, right? It's like this is, and she's born on an eclipse. That's the other thing about her chart. And sometimes people that are born on eclipses have these kind of strange destined moments. Back in the old days, they used to call it fated moments. So yeah, somebody bows out and she takes the role of Xena, and Xena becomes this cultural force. You know, she is the female counterpart to Kevin Sorbo's Hercules. And originally she comes in on that show. That's how she's introduced. And she is a force of nature. She did a lot of her own stunts, by the way. And she got injured a lot. And she actually suffered, guess what, injuries to her head, which would not be uncommon here in terms of all of this. So she really literally embodies this character. And even the name Lucy and then Lawless, you know, you're dealing with, you know, this lawless energy, this banshee, this Amazon, and Lucy being the light, right? The light of this kind of, you know, lawless banshee, anarchic energy. And originally she was supposed to be a cast as kind of a darker, when I say darker, I'm talking about the tone of the character, kind of a darker protagonist. But she changes, and they change the kind of the character arc for her and turn her more into like an avenging angel, right? That's her role. And what's interesting is that she has this partner on the show, Gabrielle. Like, so there's these two women, and it has like this show had a really strong impact in the lesbian community because they saw this as kind of a political, sexual, um, borderline archetypal role for the power of two women being together in a strong and empowered, right, equal feminine relationship. And this is her partner in the show. It's another woman, right? And so we have the South Node over here in Libra and conjunct the vertex. So she's going to find out more about who she is in partnership anyway, married 2 times, but it's also baked into the show. Really interesting chart. We have the Mercury conjunction with Venus in her chart in the 12th house. Super intuitive, like what you see here with all the Aries is the Xena warrior princess side, but then she's got a softer feminine, more artistic kind of, it's the yang and the yin of Lucy Lawless, and she's got that Chiron at 29 degrees, which is the final degree of the zodiac. Very interesting chart, and there's even more to her in this role that transcends even the personification of a warrior, priestess or princess. I mean, it's not just the role, although the role is really big, and she's been in some other stuff. But what do we know her as? We know her as Xena, the warrior, right? So here's a really interesting story about Xena and Lucy Lawless. And I bet you didn't know this, because neither did I until I went down the rabbit hole. Let me show this to you. I'm going to bring up her Wikipedia page because it's a very interesting story here. And I bet that, well, maybe some astrologers know this, but I don't think it's particularly common knowledge. And it has to do with Eris. So I'm going to read this here. Xena, warrior princess, has been referred to as a pop cultural phenomena, sex symbol, and feminist, lesbian, bisexual icon. The television series, which employed pop culture references as a frequent humorous device, has itself become a frequent pop culture reference in video games, comics, television shows, has been frequently parodied and spoofed. Xena has been credited by many, including Buffy the Vampire Slayer, blah, 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 blah. So, Quentin Tarantino and other Aries, looks at Xena as kind of a inspiration for Kill Bill. Let's go down here. In 2005, the team that discovered the dwarf planet 2003 UB313 nicknamed it Xena in honor of the TV character. On 1 October 2005, the team announced that 2003 UB313 had a moon, which they nicknamed Gabrielle. So now Xena has a freaking exoplanet named after her, and the moon is named after her compatriot on the show, Gabrielle. The objects were officially named Eris and Dysnomia by the International Astronomical Union, Gabrielle Union, on 13 September 2006. Although the official names have legitimate roots in Greek mythology, Dysnomia is also a synonym to the word anomia, which means lawlessness in Greek, perpetuating the link with Lucy Lawless. So Lucy Lawless and Xena, the warrior princess, are connected to the planet Eris. Her and Gabrielle they almost named Eris Xena, okay? And when we think of Eris, we think of Discordia. We think of chaos, right? I mean, we've gone down the Eris rabbit hole. Sounds a lot like Aries too. and Eris is an Aries. And in her first house, Eris is there, right? She has Eris right in her first house. Let me see if I can go back to her chart. To me, this is a really interesting star of the day because it's not often that we have kind of a living myth in our presence. And this is what Lucy Lawless is, born on an eclipse, born on an Aries eclipse, basically having Eris named after her initially. And we can see Eris right here, conjunct Saturn in her chart, right in the first house. And this, this is somebody who really embodies her sign, her day. And she's an archetype. She's an astrological archetype and a mythopoetic expression of astrology incarnate. So much that they named a freaking exoplanet after her, or at least her character, but ultimately it still is named after her. Dysnomia, the moon, relating to her last name, lawlessness. What a star of the day. And she's got kids and a life, and she's married, and I guess she's done some other projects. But talk about living out your astrological myth. Lucy Lawless, A+. All right, thanks for being here. I hope you have a great day. Remember, this is the next 48 hours are really intense, really, really intense. Hardcore, defensive, subjective energies. Moving into the moon in Leo, which is the justification and the kind of the royal embodiment of the prior 24 hours, 36 hours, which is really what it would be. It's like, see, I'm justified. I'm justified by how I felt. And nobody is immune to it. There's no winners or losers here. And they're banging the drums. They're banging the drums. They're banging the war drums on Thursday, Friday, particularly Friday. And it's going to be a very intense weekend. The April Fool's weekend, Day of Rage. Here we go. Thanks for being here. I'm going to be over on 15 Minutes of Flame shortly. I got to go prep for the show. And if you want to have some great CBD products in your life, go to truehempscience.com. And if you spend $100 or more, please use 15 mins, 15 MINS in the checkout box, and you'll get free product. Why not? Why not get yourself some free CBD products? Throw in $100 or more, get you free shipping. There we go. We'll be back in it and on it over here, and we'll be discussing, of course, the news of the day. Hopefully not in a redundant or pedantic way. Hopefully we'll both learn something. Take good care. Bye for now.